It's Wednesday, and you all know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Life in the Movies podcast. I'm one of your co hosts. My name is Ryan Cam. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This week, we're in the middle of a new year, or not the middle of, but the middle of the beginning of a new year. And with that in mind, Jacob and I are going to be talking about our five most anticipated movies of 2023, and we will be wrapping up our coverage of Daredevil season 2 with the season finale. It's going to be a lot of fun, but first I have to introduce my co-host, Jake Martin. Jacob, how are you?
I am doing pretty good. It's always a pleasure to be a part of your podcast every single week, and it's cool that we hit the 1 year anniversary of the Life in the Movies podcast. And I'm excited to see. I think I said this already last week. I'm excited to see where this podcast is going to go in 2023, and I'm excited to talk about my most anticipated movies of the new year.
All right. Well, do we want to talk about some things we've been watching lately, or do you want to just go straight into the Daredevil stuff?
I can talk a couple things that I've watched recently because there's quite a few things that I've watched that I'm excited to talk about. First off, I finally watched Talladega Nights for the first time, the 2006 comedy starring Will Ferrell. I Yeah, I know. I've never watched it before. Even it was one that came out when I was a kid, but I did really enjoy this movie. It is really stupid though, because Ricky Bobby is pretty much a doofus all the way through. He says some of the most ridiculous stuff in this movie, but I could not help but laugh at how amazingly stupid this movie was. The camaraderie with Will Ferrell as Ricky Bobby and John C. Riley was pretty impeccable with the whole shake and bake. The addition of Sasha Baron Cohen was absolutely hilarious, and it's probably one of the funniest roles I've seen from him. I can't say it's the best comedy I've ever seen or anything, but it's definitely one of the more memorable movies that Will Ferrell has been a part of, and I'm glad to have finally checked the movie out.
Yeah. What did you think of that dinner scene where Ricky Bobby's like, "Dear Lord, sweet baby Jesus"? That scene is
That
legend.
was amazingly good. Like, I like my sweet baby Jesus.
His
Everyone was talking about
his
what their favorite Jesus was.
his father-in-law roasting and be like, Jesus was a man. He had a beard.
Oh man. And I like the whole shake and bake, and then I love the part where he crashes and he thinks he's on fire, and he's like, "Oh, help me, Jesus! Help me, Tom Cruise!"
Yeah, that movie is completely ridiculous. I love there's so many things because I'm a big NASCAR fan, so I got a lot of the references that were dropped in there. Like for example, I love how in the middle of one of the races there's a big Fig Newton logo on his windshield at one point. And then there was, and earlier in the movie, he did all these ads for like Big Red bubble gum and all these other things. The Big Red one's the funniest, where it's like, if you don't chew Big Red, you can go yourself. Like, okay, that's one way to approach marketing.
Yeah, yeah. That whole reel of Ricky Bobby doing all those ads was pretty funny. And then to make it even funnier, the blooper reel at the end was just as funny as the movie itself.
Yeah, that movie and Elf are the two Will Ferrell movies that I like the most. But what else you got?
Another comedy I checked out for the first time was Liar Liar, starring Jim Carrey. I really enjoyed this movie. It's probably the funniest movie I've seen Jim Carrey in now. I think the premise of having him being able to not being able to lie for 24 hours when he's at a job where he lies all the time to keep his job pretty much, I thought was absolutely genius. And I enjoyed the physical comedy that Jim Carrey brought into this movie. But the movie also has heart as well because, Jim Carrey's known for like his silly comedies in the 90s. Like, I like Ace Ventura, The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, but they're pretty goofy at heart. And they're just like silly comedies that, don't really resonate with me as much, even though I like them. This one I enjoyed more because you have the silly antics of Jim Carrey, but at the core of it, you have a flawed man who after the course of this 24 hours learns to be a better person and a better father. And that's what I really liked about the movie. And I thought it had a really sweet ending that, yeah, actually got me in the feels a little bit. And I thought it was a really great first time comedic watch. Can't wait to revisit again.
This is some of Jim Carrey's best work by a significant margin. The scene where he beats himself up in the bathroom is
Yeah.
just the stuff of legend. And then it's at the car like wrecker when his car gets towed, and he is like, "What is that?" And he's like pointing to the scratch, and the car attendant's like, "Oh yeah, that is there." And Jim Carrey's like, "What? You're more liable." And the car attendant's like, "Yeah, what are you gonna do about it?" And then Carrie explains the whole, "I'm not going to do anything because if I did do something, you would set a court date that you would never show up for, and it's a song and dance that just leads to nothing." And the car attendant's just like, "Have you been here before?" And then he tosses in the keys. I'm like, bro, wow. This movie for 90 minutes crams more laughs and more heart into crams more laughs and more heart into 90 minutes more than most comedies of the past 5 years. I know I might be bold in saying that, but that's my stance and I'm sticking to it. That scene where he and his wife are in that argument after the whole curse has been put upon him, and he finally admits, is like, "Look, I'm a bad father." And then he realizes, like, did I just say that out loud? That's such a great scene. It really is.
Yeah, there's just so many great scenes in that movie. Like when he first realizes that something's wrong, and he's having that sexual encounter, and she's like, "How did you enjoy this?" He's like, "I've done better," and he's like, "Wait, what?" That really
And then she promptly kicks him out.
and then he's like on the phone with his ex-wife. He's like, "Why weren't you at your son's birthday party?" He's like, "I had sex." Wait, what? I was like, oh, I was laughing so hard because most normal people would not admit that, but the fact that Jim Carrey said that out loud was just so funny.
This is a little moment, but it destroys me every time when he walks out of the elevator, turns around, and he says, "It was me."
And
Jim
I
Carrey.
know it's silly. I know it's silly, but I even like it when he just gets all nutsy in his office and he's like, "It's blue,
The
it's
pen
blue,
is
the
blue.
pen is blue." And he just starts writing himself all over.
And then he writes, "The pen is blue" on its face. Jim Carrey in the 90s was unstoppable. You couldn't stop him for anything. From like his entire 1993 to Liar Liar to the Truman Show, like he was unstoppable. I miss that Jim Carrey so much.
Yeah, that was definitely a good era, and that was definitely his peak. I definitely agree with that. And another movie I just checked out for the first time the other night is Shanghai Noon, starring Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson. If you've seen the movie Rush Hour, it does follow a similar formula where Jackie Chan heads over to the U.S. and he has a reluctant team up with an American character, and there's a language culture barrier between the two characters, but they ultimately grow to have a strong friendship, and they end up saving the day at the end of the movie. Happened with Rush Hour 2 years prior, and Shanghai Noon is pretty much Rush Hour if it was a Western. And I honestly really enjoy both movies. I think I like Rush Hour a little bit more. I think it's just a little bit funnier in my opinion. But on its own, Shanghai Noon is still pretty good. Like Jim Carrey, not Jim Carrey. I'm still spoiled on Liar
Oh,
Liar.
Owen Wilson.
Jackie Chan is still really good in this movie, who has a lot of cool fight sequences. It's weird that he's paired with Owen Wilson, but it actually really works. Owen Wilson is really funny in this movie. I like the back and forth between the two. It has some really good cinematography in it, and I think this was like a first time directing job that I read, and it was actually staged very well as far as like uh, what you expect in a Western movie. There's a really cool train scene I really like. There's like a bar fight. There's some good shootouts and standoffs. It's pretty cool, and you still got the martial arts from Jackie Chan. Yeah, I'd say the villain is a bit weak in my opinion. Like that whole storyline, I didn't really care for. The main storyline involves Jackie Chan having to go to the U.S. to rescue like the princess that got captured, who's played by Lucy Liu, and I feel like Lucy Liu is a little bit underutilized in this movie because I know she can do awesome action in it and action in movies. Like take a look at Kill Bill, for instance, but she doesn't really do much in this movie, which is kind of sad. But the movie itself overall was a lot of fun. I especially enjoyed the pairing of Owen Wilson and Jackie Chan. I'd say the funniest moment they had together. There's like the uh, they're hanging out in the brothel and they're both in two different bathtubs and they take part in the Chinese drinking game. If you haven't seen the film, I don't want to spoil that, but just look up that scene where they do the Chinese drinking game, and it's definitely the funniest moment in the entire movie. It's a pretty good movie if you haven't seen it.
I have not seen it, but I've seen Shanghai Nights about 100 times. Don't ask me how that works. That's just how it is. But Shanghai Nights is just as funny in my opinion.
I'll have to check that one out now.
But if that's all you got,
Yeah, what have you been watching?
so for this week, I watched a Shyamalan double feature of Lady in the Water, which that review is now on the channel, and The Happening. Oh boy. And the Shyamalan project has officially taken a turn into the what I'm calling the Shyamalan Triangle of Terror, Happening, Last Airbender, and After Earth. Uh, your prayers are
I've,
greatly
I've
appreciated.
seen that happening, and it is so bad it's ridiculous.
It's not even that so bad it's good in my opinion. It's just the regular kind of bad. It was 90 minutes. It felt like three times that. Everyone just completely acts like they're in the wrong kind of movie. I've heard some theories say that it's satire, but it's too serious to be satire. Shyamalan knew exactly what he was doing. And I can't. My review, I've already uploaded it. It will be dropping this coming Monday, the 16th.
Yeah,
So
I feel like that's a movie where Shyamalan thought he was directing like this very serious concept, but everything just fell so flat that it turned into an unintentional comedy. I enjoy it as an unintentional comedy though. Like the fact that you have these random plants that you're supposed to believe are these scary actual threats that you don't even see their faces, just ooh, tree branches blowing, and that's scary. I mean, no, that doesn't work. But hey, at least you got the very well mean Mark Wahlberg going, what? No.
uh, you got Mark Wahlberg running your way from trees, Shyamalan. Like, what are you doing? But believe me, it's about to get a whole lot worse. But on Saturday night, I ended up seeing Megan, which, as of this recording, has just been doing great numbers at the box office, approaching 40 million globally. Which, I mean, for a movie that was probably made on a budget like a lot less than that, I mean, Jason Blum has got to be doing something right. And I didn't love the movie, but I liked the movie. I liked the concept more than the execution. There was themes of like these helicopter parents and parents letting their kids being governed by their phones and technology rather than doing it themselves. I didn't think it was executed to the best of what I thought it could have been done, but it was interesting. There was at least an attempt to try and be smarter than the concept suggests. The effects on Megan herself were quite impressive. Just I imagine it was a mix of practical and CGI, and I thought it was all handled very well. The acting was solid. It had some pretty good scares. So I give this one a modest recommendation.
Oh, good. I'm glad to see the movie actually did well and exceed a lot of people's expectations. When we did the preview last week, I was a little concerned that the movie wasn't going to be enjoyable because of the PG-13 rating, but it looked like a lot of people enjoyed it for what it was, and I'm glad to see it do well.
Yeah, I agree. And then on Sunday night, I went to my luxury theater and I saw The Whale. There was a theater finally close enough to me to finally see The Whale. This movie had been getting all sorts of buzz, mostly due to Brendan Fraser. and he more than lives up to the hype. The rest of the movie is a completely different story. It's not even been 24 hours as of this recording, and I have so many complex feelings about this movie because on the one hand, and I say this in my review, which I have not dropped, but I will sometime this week. I account this to the phrase the surgery was successful, but the patient died, meaning that it was very well made, and in terms of themes, it accomplished what it set out to do. But in terms of empathy, outside of Brendan Fraser, I didn't care for anyone else in this movie. Everyone else was so hard-hearted and mean-spirited. And I actually got into a discussion on Twitter with a good friend of mine. He's from the Suit Up Geeks podcast. I knew him as Batnips, but his real name is Ryan. But he's a writer, and we were talking about it online, and it was a good conversation about how the family dynamics and how Fraser's character in the past was kind of selfish. No spoilers, but actions that led him to this point, and it was just repercussions from that, and just how because Sadie Sink's character had some justification to be as hard-hearted as she was, but at the same time she was so hard-hearted that she became a bit of a cartoon character, and I just was like, no one can ever be this cynical. It doesn't make any sense to me. But this is going to be interesting to see if this gets any awards buzz. I know Fraser will definitely be in the conversation if he gets nominated, and I imagine he will. This is a Darren Aronofsky movie, so do know your mileage on his films before you go into it. This is definitely not as dark as something like, say, Requiem for a Dream, but it is definitely on brand for an Aronofsky production. So a bit of a recommendation, but just with the caveat of know your mileage with Aronofsky before you go in.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but interesting things about it. Like you seem to be kind of on the middle about it. I've seen other people have it in their top 10 of the year. And then I know your friend Rachel really hated the movie and thought it was a miserable experience. So I guess that's the case with Darren Aronofsky. He tends to have very polarizing, divisive movies. I'll check it out eventually. I don't know when, but yeah, I definitely want to give Brendan Fraser some love.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think to leave it on a parting quote from Roger Ebert, I admire what he did and I hate it. But moving on to one last movie I watched actually today on this Monday, The Pale Blue Eye on Netflix, starring Christian Bale and directed by Scott Cooper. And outside of a subplot that I was not a fan of, this movie actually surprised me at how much I liked it. I mean, I'm a big fan of Christian Bale, so you already got me there. But Henry Melling is really good as Edgar Allan Poe. There's a bit of a mystery attached involving a cadet at the newly formed West Point Military Academy who was found dead. And so Christian Bale's character is brought in to investigate because he's a private investigator. And the movie has atmosphere in spades. It's a period piece, but it's a dark period piece, kind of like the stuff I like. Henry Melling is a lot of fun as Edgar Allan Poe. He definitely has like the Poe-isms down. You can definitely look at this character and be like, you could definitely write something like the Telltale Heart in the future. But there's stuff with the occult that I just thought was not really fleshed out all that well. And just overall, I thought that was a bit of a disappointment. But outside of that, I like the rest.
Yeah, I remember seeing this advertised on one of our past monthly previews, and it looked okay for what it was. Christian Bale, I do really like, and Edgar Allan Poe. There's some interesting stuff you could do with that. Are you familiar with Henry Melling and what else he's done as an actor?
I know his name is familiar. Let me do a quick.
Oh, I can tell you who he is. He was Vernon Dursley. He was no, not Vernon. He was Dudley, the son, in the Harry Potter movies.
Oh, really? I did not.
Yeah,
That makes a lot of sense. And looking at him now, his IMDb profile picture, like he looks so skinny. And I know Dudley was fat in the book, so it it works for the character. But just looking at him now, like, this cannot be the same guy, but it turns
Yeah,
out it
like
is.
he looks so different than when he was Dudley than where he is now. And I've seen him. It seems like I've seen him mostly in recent years in Netflix projects. Like he had a supporting role on The Queen's Gambit. He had a small part in was it that Devil All the Time movie with Robert Pattinson. He was the villain in The Old Guard with Charlize Theron. So it seems like it seems like Netflix is like his hangout place.
I mean, he's been in all the Harry Potter movies, so I imagine that he's got enough money to where he could retire anytime he wants to. So being in Netflix movies is just him scratching his acting itch, if you will. But Pale Blue Eye, I do give a modest recommendation to. It is a bit long, but if you do enjoy this kind of movie, especially Scott Cooper movies, I do recommend it. But what have you all been watching lately, if anything? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. All right, Jacob, we did it. We are at the end of season 2 of Daredevil. It's been a long road, but we finally made it. This episode is called A Cold Day in Hell's Kitchen. In the season finale, Daredevil is backed into the ultimate showdown for his own life and the future of Hell's Kitchen. And when I DM'd you about the episode, you just had one word: disappointing. So, by all means, you have the floor. Take it away.
Well, pretty much when I said disappointing, it was not just the episode, but the season as a whole. It's sad to me to say that because I love the first season so much. But this one, it just seemed like they crammed so much into this whole season that I felt like it deflated by the end of the day. Like if we go back to like the first half of the season, I was so hyped to see what was going to happen with they set up the Punisher and the conflict of morality between Daredevil and the Punisher. And there was a really cool fight between the two in like the first half of the season, and I was so excited to see where that was going to go. And then Matt Murdock was going to have to like defend him on court. I was intrigued by that. There was some cool stuff with the Punisher that I really liked, but then you set up Elektra midway through the season, and I thought that storyline kind of screeched to a halt. I mean, I like the chemistry between the two was okay, but the storyline was just not near as investing. And then you have the whole thing where Stick shows up and he's talking about the hand, and they reveal what the hand is in like the last 2 episodes, and I honestly didn't care what that was. It just kind of built up to something random. And so you get to this final episode, and it's pretty much Daredevil and Elektra taking on the hand. There's a couple good action sequences in there. I like the part where Daredevil stops a hostage situation and Karen's one of the hostages. I thought that was a cool fight scene. But I just didn't feel the emotion in this final episode. Like there's cool action, but I just didn't care about what was going on. Even when you have Elektra dying at the end, I was like, I don't care. I didn't care for the character. I didn't care for the storyline. It seemed like it hijacked the stuff I was wanting to see in this season with the Punisher stuff, and the Punisher's hardly even in this episode. Like they wrapped up a lot of his stuff in the episode prior, which was some good stuff. But I feel like they kind of wasted him too. Like you see him at the end where he's on the other side of the other building where he's helping Daredevil take down these ninjas out. But I kind of wish we saw more Punisher, honestly. But I don't know. This was a very disappointing episode. I've heard I shared my thoughts on Facebook earlier today that I was disappointed in season 2, and there were people who commented and they said season 3 was better. I hope season 3 is a turnaround for Daredevil because I thought this was such a disappointing season overall, but it does have its moments.
Yeah, that was the thing that I took away from it because I don't know, maybe it was because of the rose-tinted glasses, and no, that's not a callback to the glasses that Matt Murdock actually wears. But maybe it was because I just remember seeing it a few years ago and hyping it up in my head. This time around, I just didn't like it. I think the second half of this season got a bit overstuffed. First of all, you got Fisk, then you got Stick coming back, then Nobu comes back after he gets set on fire in the mid of season one. The like you said, I felt like I don't know, it felt like too much. I felt like
Yeah.
too much.
I mean, there's still stuff I liked in it. I like that they're slowly, continually connecting on Netflix shows. It's cool seeing Hogarth, the character Carrie Ann Moss played on Jessica Jones, having a small role. Who hired Foggy at the
Mm.
beginning, seeing where that's going to go. I don't know if that's a good mix because I don't trust Hogarth as a character, but it's cool seeing that bridge connection of all these Marvel Netflix shows that were going on at that time. I've actually really liked Karen's arc in throughout this season. I like that she's more confident from where she was when we first saw her in the first season, and now she's a reporter who's pretty much tough as nails, and she reminds me of Lois Lane quite a bit. I actually really enjoyed her character progression, and her final speech that she gives, I thought was actually pretty good. I thought it was a good way of wrapping up the season. And and Matt Murdock reveals himself as Daredevil to her at the end. So that actually has me intrigued if she's okay with that or not. I'm pretty sure she probably will because she deep down she loves him, so I'm sure she'll be fine with it, as in most superhero love stories. I really enjoyed some aspects of this, but just compared to season one, where it just felt like it had a good overall streamlined story that had a point A, point B, point C. It just seemed like you had point B, point A to point D, back to B, then to F, then to E, and all the way down to Z. And it just wasn't as fun this go round.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And like you said, Karen Page is secretly the best character in this whole show, or one of the best, easily top three. Like her arc from where we see her in the very first episode, like covered in blood and set up for a murder that she did not commit, to where she ends at the end of season two, working for the New York Bulletin in Ben Urich's old office, actually being a journalist. Like Deborah Ann Wool, shout out to her. She crushed it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
But now that season two of Daredevil's in the books, next in the MCU timeline is Luke Cage season one. Now I think you've told me you have not seen the show before, right?
No.
I saw the first season when it dropped, but it has been a while. So this is going to be a bit of a fresh watch for the both of us. But Michael Coulter has gone on to do big things since then. He's actually coming up in a movie this coming weekend with Plane, starring Russell Crowe. So
Gerard
good on him for getting the work, but the movie doesn't look so hot. But
I think it's
could be.
Gerard Butler, not Russell Crowe.
Oh, did I call him Russell? Wow, that it's late. Uh, Gerard Butler and Mike Coulter. But Mike Coulter has been in some good things, so good on him for that. And I don't know if maybe you've heard, but who plays the villain? Should I tell you, Jacob, who plays the villain in in Luke
I
Cage?
think I saw somewhere that Mahershala Ali was on Luke Cage. So
Yep.
is he like the villain in it? You said
He's the villain. He plays Cottonmouth.
that'll be interesting that he's in that, and then he's cast as Blade in the
Yeah.
upcoming film. So that's kind of crazy. He's in two different characters and two different Marvel projects.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to see what you think about Luke Cage because I remember liking season one. But what did you all think of Daredevil season two as a whole and the season finale? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. All right, Jacob, let's get into the main event for the evening. These are our top five movies, most anticipated movies of 2023. And as usual with top five, we're going to go back and forth 5-5, 4-4, so on and so forth. But before we do get into that, Jacob, I heard you had some honorable mentions.
I did have some honorable mentions because there were just so many exciting stuff coming out this year. I wanted to like briefly name drop other movies I was excited to watch coming out this year. First off, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Really excited to see the beginning of Phase 5 and see more of Ant-Man in a larger scale movie. Creed 3, it'll be interesting seeing where the franchise is going to go without Stallone, but I do trust Michael B. Jordan. The Super Mario movie, Chris Pratt aside, it looks really awesome. I can't wait to see how they're going to translate the game into a big screen movie. I wouldn't have had this on here if I had not seen the trailer the other day, but Evil Dead Rise looks absolutely crazy, and I can't wait to see a really legit scary version of Evil Dead. That's on par with the original movie. It looks really bananas, and I can't wait to see what these filmmakers are going to do. Pixar's new movie Elemental, I think, has a really intriguing premise, and I'm always excited to see a new Pixar movie. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I do have some concerns, but James Mangold has had a really good track record, and the movie has an awesome trailer, and I can't wait to see it. Barbie, it's weird saying I'm kind of intrigued about this one, but I do like the director Greta Gerwig, and Margot Robbie is perfect casting for Barbie. The trailer is really weird, but I am really intrigued on it. Gran Turismo, I've not played the games, but I did see the teaser trailer. It looks incredible the way they're filming these race sequences, and it's from the director of District 9, so I think it has potential. Disney's new film Wish, which I know 2022 was not their best year. I was not a big fan of Strange World, but Wish looks like it'll be back on par with the best of Disney, and I hope it delivers. And another one, you might be surprised that I'm putting it on my honorable mentions, is Wonka, which, yeah, I don't know if it's a necessary that we need another Willy Wonka movie, but I hope Timothy Chalamet delivers on the role. And the film is directed by Paul King, who directed two of my favorite family films, Paddington and Paddington 2. And that's good enough to put it on my most anticipated honorable mentions list.
Yeah, those are some pretty heavy hitters. As far as my honorable mentions, not as many as you, but I do have a couple. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Transformers Rise of the Beasts, let me see, and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Though that last one's only an honorable mention because even though I don't hate Crystal Skull like the rest of humanity, I'm still not totally convinced. The trailer, it looked pretty great, and it has James Mangold directing. Mads Mikkelsen is the villain. Harrison Ford is back, but I still have a lump in my stomach about just how I feel about it. But I am leaving room to be legitimately surprised. So fingers crossed. But anyway, Jacob, what is your number 5?
Number 5, I'm sure this might be your number 1 because I know this movie was your favorite movie of 2021. But my number 5 is Dune Part 2. I wasn't as big on the first movie as you were, but I still really enjoyed the movie as a newcomer to the world of Dune. An incredible cast. Denis Villeneuve, who had absolute care into adapting the source material to life. I'm so excited that the movie did well enough to warrant a sequel, and I'm excited to see the second part of this epic story brought to life. I know the film is going to be incredible visually. It's going to be awesome seeing these actors reprise their roles like Timothy Chalamet and Zendaya and Rebecca Ferguson. And I also know Austin Butler and Florence Pugh are added to the cast in the sequel, and I'm excited to see what those two are going to bring in the world of Dune. I cannot wait to see this movie when it drops in November, and it's number 5 on my most anticipated of the year.
Yeah, in the words of the top 10 show, that's a punt. So I'll be talking about that in just a bit. But my number 5 is one that's coming up very soon, Creed 3. Every time I see the trailer for this movie, I get more and more excited for it. This is from the mind of Michael B. Jordan. He's also returning as Adonis Creed. We're getting Jonathan Majors, whose year might be the best out of all of them. Like he's going to be in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania in February, and then in March he's going to be in Creed 3. So the dude's going to have a crazy year. And I am going through the Rocky series on this channel, and I have not been disappointed by one of the Creed movies since. I loved Creed 1, and Creed 2 was just as good, if not better. So Creed 3 is a movie that I'm looking forward to with great anticipation.
Yeah, this was, like I said, it was on one of my honorable mentions. I am also really excited to see Creed 3. I think Michael B. Jordan is awesome in the role of Adonis Creed. It'll be interesting seeing where it's going to go without Rocky, but I think the movie can still stand on its own. And I think having Jonathan Majors as what looks like a formidable antagonist will help make this an exciting movie in the franchise.
Yeah, and let's not forget that this is the first of the Creed movies without Sylvester Stallone's involvement. So there's no, I mean, there is mild attachment to the Rocky films. I mean, Adonis Creed is still the son of Apollo Creed, lest we forget. But this is the first movie in which the villain has no connection to Rocky at all, or no connection to Rocky in any way. Because remember, Creed 2 had the son of Ivan Drago. So, and while that movie was awesome, I was sitting there thinking to myself, please don't let Creed 3 be like Clubber Lang's son or something like that. And thankfully, they didn't go in that direction.
Yeah, that would have been too repetitive if they did that.
I personally think, and I hope that they do this in one of these movies one day, like Adonis Creed against like someone like one of the Paul brothers, because the Paul brothers are doing boxing right now, and I think that would be like not a Paul brother himself, but like a movie version, if you will. I think that would be creative, but that's just me armchair quarterbacking it. But what is your number four?
Number four, it's a movie you brought up as one of your honorable mentions, and it is my most anticipated animated film of 2023, and that is Spider Man Across the Spider Verse. Now, Into the Spider Verse is was such a pleasant surprise. I was not really impressed with Sony Pictures Animation track record. Like a year before, they released the dumpster fire that was the Emoji Movie, and it was an utter disaster of a film. So when they announced an animated Spider-Man movie, I was very cautious. I'm like, please don't mess up Spider-Man. Why are we doing this? Like we already got the MCU. Let's just leave it at that. But man, oh man, I was so surprised by Into the Spider Verse. It was my favorite movie of 2018, and it's one of the best animated films that has come out in recent years. Like it did a good job of doing a great Spider-Man story, introducing newcomers like me to Miles Morales, who is a fantastic iteration of Spider-Man, and it's a big celebration of Spider-Man as a whole, while still telling a self-contained story, while doing a big epic multiverse story. And it looks like this film is doubling down on that, where you get a bigger multiverse story with other iterations of Spider-Man, and there's like a big fabric in the multiverse again, and there's some going rogue. It looks like the animation style looks incredible, like in the first movie, and I'm excited to see where the story is going to go. I hope it still tells a great Spider-Man story. Focus it on Miles because he's like the center of these movies, while still having some really cool action sequences, a lot of heart, a lot of resonance, and hopefully some really cool fan service. So I'm excited to see this new Spider-Man movie, number four on my list.
Yeah, we're getting Spider-Man 2099 voiced by Oscar Isaac. We live in great times as superhero movie fans.
Yeah, I don't know that character, but yay, Oscar Isaac is Spider-Man.
Yeah, that was my point, but he was in a couple of video games. That's why I know him. But my number four is the punt from earlier, Dune Part 2. Like you said, I was so glad that this movie did well enough for there to be a part 2 because I was rooting for part 1 so hard, both in terms of quality and in terms of box office, and it exceeded on both fronts. That movie, Dune Part 1, is so good and it is so very well made. Denis Villeneuve still has the golden touch, so I'm looking forward to see what he does with Dune 2 because I hope that I hope that Austin Butler is cast in what Sting was cast as in the first Dune movie. And if he is, oh boy, the memes of him walking out in that bikini, ooh boy. But what is your number three?
My number three, this is one I'm super excited to talk about. And it's been one I've been excited about for the past couple of years because it's been delayed several times because of the pandemic. And that is Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part One. And I think this movie is going to be probably the biggest Mission Impossible movie box office wise because of the big success that Top Gun Maverick had. The success of Top Gun, I think, inspired a new generation to really admire Tom Cruise as an actor and an action star. And maybe if they didn't like the other Mission Impossible movies, they now like Tom Cruise because of Top Gun. It makes them want to watch the Mission Impossible movies and be excited to see this new Mission Impossible movie, which I've been a fan of the Mission Impossible movies for years now, and I'm excited to see this new entry. The trailer that dropped last year was absolutely incredible. We don't know much about the plot. I've just seen some of the stunt work in the trailer, and it looks absolutely amazing. You got like a train going off a bridge, and then the one that's been the most marketed because there was a recent behind the scenes video that dropped. You got Tom Cruise driving a motorcycle off a ramp, off a cliff, and doing a parachute dive. That and he rehearsed that like so many. I think he spent like a whole year preparing for that. And then when he did the stunt, like he did like 10 takes of it, I saw in that video. And this man is crazy, like 60 years old, doing all these crazy stunts and still living to tell the tale about it. I don't know where he gets his fitness from, but I respect the heck out of Tom Cruise. I'm excited to see this movie. Christopher McQuarrie is directing again. He's directed the last two movies, which are really good. Rogue Nation and Fallout. Fallout's still my favorite Mission Impossible film. Is this one going to top it? We'll just have to see. I feel like each one has gotten better since the third movie, personally. And I know this being a part one, I think I read this and part two are going to be like the last two Mission Impossible movies. Hopefully, they end on a high note and it will be one of the best action franchises of all time.
Yeah, the man is 60 years old, and one of my goals in life is to have as much energy at that age as he does at that age, because like the man just does not care. Either that or he cares too much. It's one or the other. And this is my number three also. I
Oh,
am
good.
so looking forward to this one. The best one is still Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, but that's a discussion for another time. Jacob, what is your number two?
My number two, this is my most anticipated comic book movie on the list, and that is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, directed by James Gunn. I've been a fan of all of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. The first one was such a surprise hit. Two, which I know some people are not the biggest fans of in the YouTube world, but I personally really enjoy Guardians 2, and it's in my top two Marvel movies of all time. And I even enjoyed the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which just dropped on Disney Plus. I feel like if the third movie delivers and is a good epic send off for these characters, the Guardians movies could be the best like mini franchise in the MCU. It might even top the Avengers movies, in my opinion, if because they're so well done and quality. James Gunn is such a gifted writer and director. It's going to be kind of bittersweet because I have a feeling now that he's head of DC and prepping out his plans for the upcoming DC universe. This is probably going to be the last thing he does at Marvel, and I hope it's a good wrap up for his tenure at Marvel. That will be what was I saying? It'll be a good tenure at Marvel, a good final run for him, and I'm excited to see what he does next. I think it's going to be an emotional movie too because it looks like it's going to have more of a serious tone while retaining, the humor that made the other two movies so good. Uh, People are already speculating like characters that might get killed off in this movie. I don't like jumping on that train because I want to enjoy the movie and just get into it myself. But it's I think it's going to be a good movie that's going to be very emotionally resonant, and hopefully it's on par with the other movies.
Yeah, Dave Bautista said in an interview that this is his last appearance in the MCU, so it's pretty safe to assume that Drax is going to be kaput. But yeah, James Gunn uh, is going to leave behind a legacy as probably the best overall director the MCU ever hired, because he directed just the Guardians stuff and it was all mostly great. I will defend Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 until the day I die. That movie is far better than some people give it credit for. But again, another discussion for another time. This, after a very stagnant phase four, it's looking like the MCU is going to come back with both barrels, with Ant-Man, which still looks really good, and Guardians Volume 3, which looks just as good, if not better. So I am definitely looking forward to that. But for my number two, I had to go to my boy Keanu Reeves with John Wick Chapter 4. The John Wick movies have yet to disappoint me. I know people are like, they're not as good as the first one. I don't care. I love these movies. They are so much fun, especially chapter 3, like the first 30 minutes. Wow. Like it was just craziness. And you got new additions like Clancy Brown, the GOAT character actor, and Bill Skarsgård in here as a villain. And not to mention we're getting Donnie Yen. So this is just going to be gun fu madness all over the place. And I am so excited for it.
Yeah, I'm definitely one of those people that thought the first one was the best, and I felt like they probably should have stopped after the third movie, but that's just me. However, I do respect Keanu Reeves, and the action's been good in all the John Wick movies. I'm not as hyped for it as you are, but I'm hoping it'll at least be a fun time.
Yeah. So, what is your number one? I have a feeling I may know what it is.
Well, if you know who my favorite director of all time is, it needs no introduction. Christopher Nolan and his new movie, Oppenheimer. Like, I didn't even have to know the plot of this movie. If Christopher Nolan has a movie coming out, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be my most anticipated movie of the year. And to me, he hasn't really missed as a director. I don't think Tenet was his best movie, like with the weird sound mixing and stuff, but I still respect the heck out of that movie, and it has some incredible action scenes in that movie. What I like about Oppenheimer, based on what I saw in the trailer, it looks like he's going back to some of his smaller film roots, to like Memento, Insomnia, The Prestige, some of those movies. And he's doing more so of a personal character story based on true events about the Oppenheimer guy and the creation of the atomic bomb, which really fascinates me. I mean, even you look at the cast of this movie, and it looks like it's going to be an incredible ensemble, like Killian Murphy is Oppenheimer, and I know like Robert Downey Jr., Emily Blunt, and Matt Damon, among others, are going to be in this movie. And what excites me the most about this movie is somehow Christopher Nolan recreated, somehow managed to pull off an atomic explosion without the aid of CGI. I am really excited to see how that's going to look. I know he didn't use actual nuclear weapons, but he used practical effects to recreate that. That just blows my mind how he did that, because I assume, oh, he's just going to do CGI, but no, he went all out with it, and I respect the guy for his utmost craftsmanship as a director and willing to invest in as much practical effects as he can. So all those reasons and more, Oppenheimer is my most anticipated movie of 2023.
You're a man after my own heart, because that's my number one also. This movie, I cannot be more hyped for this. And like you said, the cast, I'll just read off some of the cast off of the IMDb. Killian Murphy, Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Robert Downey Jr., Florence Pugh, Gary Oldman, Kenneth Branagh, Rami Malek, Jack Quaid, Josh Hartnett, Casey Affleck, James Remar, James Darcy, Olivia Thirlby. I mean, this is just loaded. Matthew Modine, like, like Christopher Nolan with Tenet. It's weird. I wanted that movie to be so good, and God bless him, he tried. He crashed a plane to make that movie work, but it didn't work at all. So this has definitely got to be a home run, and it's looking like it's gonna be a home run. I mean, I have no idea how he is able to recreate a nuclear explosion with practical effects, but I am so interested to see how he was able to accomplish it.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see this. I know some people were burned out by Tenet, but I think Christopher Nolan still has enough in him to still make quality movies. And whether you like his movies or not, he definitely has some of the best ambitions of any Hollywood filmmaker working today. And I deeply respect Nolan for that.
Yeah, I agree. But even the greats have an off film. Tenet was just one of them. The rest of Nolan's movies are good to great. They're sometimes the greatest of all time. So, even the greats have their off days. But Oppenheimer looks fantastic, and I'm looking forward to talking about it. But that is both of our lists. We had some heavy hitters. What are your favorite movies or the movies that you're looking forward to the most? Leave them in the comments. We would love to read what you have to say. And that is it for this episode, Jacob. Thank you so much. It is a privilege as always. Do tell the people what you're up to on your channel.
Well, some of the upcoming videos on my channel. Well, we're recording this on a Monday. I just dropped my review of Barry Lyndon for my Stanley Kubrick director project. Another video I got coming this week is my next Celebrating Disney video where I'll be talking about Invincible starring Mark Wahlberg. And then I got a live stream this Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I got Blacktastic Media and Jacob Collins joining me on my channel. We'll be doing a live collab on Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. I think all three of us really enjoy that movie, and it's going to be a big epic live discussion. And then I got a live stream. I think it'll probably be this Saturday. I've been doing a what I've watched live stream where I'll be covering different movies and shows I've watched in the past week. That's going to be the way I'll be doing stuff going forward once I move to Tennessee and start school. There'll be more live streams than anything else. So I'll have one of those what I've watched live streams coming this weekend. And I'm really excited to see where the channel is going to bring in 2023. You can also follow me on Letterboxd, Twitter, and Facebook.
Yes, all that information will be in the description. Go give him a follow and a subscribe. And as for this channel, both the Shyamalan Project and the Rocky series, The Road to Creed 3, will be continuing with upcoming reviews for The Last Airbender, The Happening is coming first, then The Last Airbender after that. But I have a great guest lined up for that. It's going to be a lot of fun and kind of painful. But Happening will be dropping this coming Monday. And then the Sunday, the day before, will be my review for Rocky 2, one of the best sequels ever made. And then new releases, reviews as they come out, of course. But thank you all so much for watching. For Jacob Martin, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you in the next one. You take care.